Hello, lovely souls. My name is Jackie, and welcome to the Raven Rabbit Wellness Studio podcast. I'm an enrolled member of the Washoe Tribe of California and Nevada. I have always been deeply connected to the unseen spiritual world since I was a child. I wouldn't say that my spiritual awakening can be pinpointed to one specific date, time, or event, but rather it was a natural unfolding over my lifetime. And I want to share that journey with you to let you know that your spiritual awakening is divinely guided. If you want help with self worth and self doubt, then this is the place for you. I took baby steps to change my life and heal from anxiety, depression, and self doubt. Ultimately, I built Raven Rabbit in my quest to help others like you do the same. I am a metaphysical minister, energy healer, and intuitive coach. In this podcast, I draw on metaphysical principles, I read energy, and I intuitively guide a conversation with the holistic, indigenous, spiritual approach to life, healing, and happiness. Stick around to explore the unseen, navigate metaphysics to live your life to the fullest, be the happiest version of yourself, and to deeply heal from what holds you back. Hello, Raven Rabbit family. Welcome to episode 27. Are you doing the work? And I have work in quotes here because that's the word I want to talk about for today's episode. So, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you listening. I usually get everything prepped before I do a podcast, but I was thinking I should be sharing that process a little bit, how I prepare. I try to ground in. I use some stones. I just meditate. It's really brief. It's nothing very long. So today I pulled out two stones that I want to work with today to help me channel my message and make sure it's in the highest frequency it can be in. So the first stone I wanted to grab today was my malachite stone. It's a very dark green. It's really heavy. This one, I always forget what it's called and everything. I just had to look it up because it just called me at a store. We were going through the crystal store and I got pulled to this, and it's good for psychic work. And so when channeling to the other side, it's not just psychic work for me, it's just like being in touch with that other side, my higher self, the universe, intuition. So I love to even sleep next to this one. So I've got my green malachite. And then my other stone that I use often is for my throat chakra, my turquoise stone. This was gifted to me by my partner because I do have a block in my throat sometimes, and I'm always working on clearing that. I think that's part of my lesson I'm here to learn is communicating. And so this podcast is a great way to be practicing that. So I got my turquoise for communication, and I got my malachite for being in touch with the other side and making sure I've got my guides here, my angels here, everyone who's working with me, and that my higher self is also attuned. So before we get started, I like to get grounded. When I get grounded, I bring my hands together in my chest, fingers pointing up, pointer fingers pointing up. I take a deep breath in and I exhale. I pull that earth star chakra underneath me just to get me grounded, centered where I'm at. I usually record most of these podcasts from my bedroom, so I have a beautiful view of the mountains and the valley, so I see nature there. I'm connected and just get recentered where I'm at. Because when I take these notes about what I want to talk about in this podcast, I'm everywhere in the world. This episode came to me while listening to other podcasts. So I like to get grounded here in this spot. Now that I'm back home, I can get grounded, recentered, refocused, and be like, what was that message I got out in the world? Bring it back in. What does it mean to me? And how could that also help others and you? So take a deep breath in. Pull that earth star chakra underneath you. Get aligned to the message that you're about to receive. And let's get started. Our invocation, please let me be a channel for clear communication. Let there be a message for everybody. And let my healed ancestors and guides, angels, all be here around me as I deliver this message and to share with me. Use me as a channel as well. And so it is. So I've been commuting to work now, and so I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. And the one thing I keep hearing is, are you doing the work? And I have been doing the work. The work is really hard. And I just keep hearing that word work. And it really started to get to me like, I don't like that word. I don't want to think about this journey as a work. I understand the purpose is like the way the word work is being used in this space is like, are you committed? Are you committed to the journey? Are you committed to the icky feelings? Are you committed to just the whole spectrum of it? But for me, I wanted to shift away from that word work and think about something that might be more mindful to that. So, in the coaching space and just in the self healing space, you have heard the word work, and it could have different meanings to you. That's the other thing about it that wasn't quite resonating with me. I am have been so much of an overachiever my whole life that the word work has probably been misused in my realm. Like I've probably misused it. I work all the time. I'm a hard worker. Like those are things about me at this in this earthly incarnation. And it's not always positive. Like that's not how I should be gaining love and self-love and all of that. So the word work can have some negative connotation. It also is related to like what do you do for work? How do you earn money? Work can also be a place that we go to earn money. It might not be our passion, and it's something that we just have to do. We have to deal with. And that's not the word I want to use when we're talking about our self-healing journey. And as I've explained before, Raven Rabbit is all about life, healing, and happiness. None of those things I want to include the word work. So the word work to me has some meaning to where it's like super forced. Maybe you're rushing through things with work because if you do the work and you get it done, then it's over. I think of like yard work. I just want to get it over with for me. Other people might enjoy it therapeutic. For me, not as much. Also like working around the house. Like I just want to get the thing painted or the thing fixed. I don't find joy in it. Housework, you got to clean the house, get it over with. So there's a lot of rush. It's bound to time. Like work is bound to time is like my biggest takeaway. And it's not always a joyful word. Um, I didn't think about this till now, but it's coming to me. What about the word workout? For a lot of people, like working out is very therapeutic. For me, it very much is. And it does take work, but I don't like to even look at my workout as a workout. It's just taking care of my body. So I've been rumbling around with that in my head, like what could be a better word than you're doing the work? So that's been something I've been thinking about the past few days. Today I open up my phone, go on TikTok, and I see this creator talking about the word work. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's not just me. I'm not the only one who's like not happy with this word. And I still came up with the different word at the end through my little mini meditation, but I liked how she explained it. In her video, she talked about how she never says she's working. She always just says the thing that she's doing. The one that related to me was writing. Says, and if somebody asked me what I'm doing, I'm writing my book right now. So you wouldn't say, oh, I'm working. If you're finding joy in writing a book, you would say, I'm writing a book. For me, another one, when I am at school doing my profession, I'm teaching. I'm not working, I'm teaching. Like, that's a big difference in my frame of mind. I'm teaching, I'm writing a book, I'm exercising for the word workout instead. I'm doing self-healing. Instead of saying I'm doing the work, I'm self-healing. I'm through whatever modality you might be doing it. So, those are many modalities. You might be doing shadow work right now. That word wasn't resonating with me. I have my shadow work dictionary. Yeah, shadow work journal that was all around TikTok, like so hyped up. Great, great book. I've been learning lots of stuff. But we call shadow work. Um, you could be saying, I'm shedding a light on my shadow, is what you're doing right now. Trauma work. We're assessing our trauma, trying to figure out what the trauma is, how it's manifesting in our current situation. We might be saying, I've worked with this trigger so much, I don't know why I'm still being triggered. That all goes back to that root around work. You've been working on this so hard. I just listened to one of my favorite creators. She was talking about she has put in the work for so long, and why aren't her manifestations coming through? And maybe that's the way you're feeling. But that's how I got so stuck on this word work. It doesn't matter how long you work on those things because we shouldn't even be using that word. The word that came through to me, the one that I would propose to use instead that I'll start using was, what about the word process? Because that's what this work that we're doing is. When we're viewing our shadow, we're going through a process. When we're viewing our trauma, we're going through a process. When we're viewing our healing and addressing our healing, we're going through a process. And that process lands on a spectrum. And that spectrum can be anywhere. It could be short, it could be long, it could be reoccurring, it could be a wavelength where you're going to learn that throughout your entire life. It may never go away because it's part of the process that you're here to learn and here to experience. So for me, instead of the word work, I was really thinking about the word process. Because when I think of the word process, I think of the word journey. And that's when I lean on it a lot. Like your healing journey, your life journey, even getting to happiness is a journey. And all of those things really are a process. I like the word process too because it seems like a neutral approach. It's like a neutral word and it's not bound by time. When you think about a process, you think about it always evolving, ever changing. Like, what's your workflow process? I just said work because I'm thinking about, I go back to my business management mind where you're actually like in a factory and you have a process for something of how it goes down the line. It's ever evolving. They don't just create it once and say, this is it. This is how we are forever going to manufacture this item for infinity. It's a process. You go through that factory line, you see what works, you see what doesn't work. The latest technology comes out, you apply it. It's constantly evolving and a process. And it's a journey. Same thing when we should be looking at our lives. When we see, sometimes we have really the big T traumas that happen, we know what they are. And we try to address them. And we think once we have addressed those big T traumas, gone through all the therapy, gone through all the healing, done all of the modalities, that it shouldn't come up again. We shouldn't have to worry about it again. But it's going to, because it's not about work and getting an accomplishment done. It's about a process. So for me, one I can share is my fear of abandonment I've had in the past. And I went to therapy over it, thought I addressed it. I do all of my modalities often. I've got my crystals, I've got my cards, I do my Reiki healing. I do a lot of things to work on that, and that's really not an issue anymore. But one day it just crept up out of nowhere. And that fear of abandonment just took me right back to where it felt like I had started. So, and that's not to discount all of the work I did. I was able to recognize that and the difference between that experience. So, you're going to have your initial gut reaction that's going to come out. Mine was tears. I started crying. But then the initial incident was over, within the first few minutes, I was able to take a step back and explain to my partner why it happened. And had I not done all of that process before, I would have never been able to express myself freely and openly, saying, "Hey, I started crying because it reminded me of this situation, and it felt like it was happening again." I think that's our cross with timelines too. If those emotions came right back. And but this time I was able to explain that. And I did that through going through the process. So it doesn't ever go away. Sometimes the fear of abandonment for me creeps up in little ways, like not being able to find somebody when I'm out and about. That's a little thing. You're just in a store, you get separated. Not a big deal. But for me, I start panicking. And maybe you feel that way too with yours. But your trigger can be the smallest thing, and it could send you right back to where you were. The difference is after you've had your initial reaction, realize, oh no, I've been triggered. How are you going to react then? What is your next steps going to be? And hopefully you have a strong process in place from all of your healing process, shadow process, that you'll be able to lean on that and be able to pull from that to make better choices that next time around. So that's why I said I don't think it ever ends. It'll just come at you in a different way. So, something to think about. I want you to think about what your trauma might be and how it can creep up in a family situation. How could it creep up at a work situation when you're with your colleagues? How might that pop up? How could it pop up when you're with your partner? How could it pop up with your children, your best friends? Because even though that thing may have never happened, they're totally opposite of one another, it can pop up. My other trigger is um this one's real vulnerable now. I have a trigger over sex workers, and not in the sense of like this is really hard to explain, but I keep hearing like tell it anyways. It's super important. Um Not in the sense of sex workers here in America who choose to do what they want to do. That's fine. Um, that's how infidelity was um, happened in my marriage. And that was in another country where I feel like those women in other countries don't get the same freedoms as we do here in America. And so those sex workers are more forced into that position. When we're talking about other countries who don't have the same liberties as us here. And so I never thought in a million years I could be watching a movie and a sex worker scene might happen or an assault scene might happen and I get triggered. Like I get upset. I get so sad. And that took a long time to realize what it was, what it connected to, and why it makes me upset. And so now I just ask like if content that I might be watching is explicit. If it is, like, can we fast forward through that scene? I get the gist because those things, it's just too much for me when it comes from a place of no freedom, when it comes from a place of like somebody being so vulnerable and taken advantage of. And that, and how that happened in my life, how it unfolded, I wasn't even like the primary victim of it. I was an outside victim of it because it happened within my marriage and I wasn't the person committing it. But it still affected me so deeply, so I can't even imagine, like, when women of assault, or anybody of assault, sexual assault speaks up, I get really upset, very empathetic. Even though it's never happened to me, I can't even imagine and put myself there. So, think about those things. It'll pop up at weird times. I'll be watching a movie with my mom, and that scene might come up, and it's like, I get triggered, and I don't wanna explain that to my mom, but I have to just how am I gonna handle that? So you never know who you might be with when you get triggered and the situation you might be in. It could be the complete opposite of what you would ever even imagine. So, I know somebody needed to hear that, that's why I shared that. I've never shared that. I've shared that with, like, close friends, but it makes so much sense in that conversation because you never know when it's gonna pop up. And that takes me back to not that word, but the other word. Are you doing the process? What process do you have in place? What techniques do you have in place to help you cope with situations like that? Because in my belief, I don't think it'll ever stop. It's just going to reinvent itself because you came here, we came here to learn something specific. And we want to make sure that it's drilled into us what we learned. I don't think it's a one and done situation. So that's my little rant on that. I know I got a little sidetracked, but it does all come back together. Also, I do my podcast. I usually touch my stones, bring them to my chakras, make sure I'm saying everything that was meant to be said. That I took notes, but I also like to channel as well. Okay, so coming back to channeling, the next part I wanted to talk about was how the word process leans itself to seasons. A lot of people are very familiar with a season of their life, like a season of breakup, heartache, a season of love, a season of abundance, a season of scarcity. We're very familiar with seasons in our lives. And I think the word seasons really applies well to the word process, because when those seasons come up, we know that it's going to be it's the long haul. And even when we get through a season, say we get through a season of a breakup, and it could happen again. Say you get through a season of abundance, and now you're just like, you're flatline, you're normal. A season of abundance can come again. So it has the positive and then the yin and the yang. Now, I don't want to say negative, but like the opposites of one another, the polarities of it. So when seasons come, processes are going to come. So when you know a certain particular season starting to well up inside you, whether it's heartache, grief, um, pain, whatever it may be, what processes do you have in place already to help with that season? And what processes might you learn that are new? Because it might be something that you've kind of experienced, just a little different, because there's a new aspect that's being revealed to you. And I think that's why it keeps reoccurring, because our earthly minds, we can't take the whole thing at once. The whole thing at once getting landed on us isn't going to happen. We're only going to get what we're going to be able to process at the time. And once we process that, that season comes to a close, we enter into another season. That's why I like the word process too, because how are we going to process some of those really exciting things? If we're processing excitement at such a high level of thrill, and like we're just way wild with it, that's not always healthy either. We want to make sure that we're even keel, that those times of abundance and great things make us really happy, but also those things that are harder, we try to stay even keel with it as well. So just to check in with my guides, make sure I shared what I wanted to share about the word work. Okay, I'm hearing the question. So instead of my episode title, Are You Doing the Work? Have you applied the process? Have you learned the process? Okay, so that's a different way to shift your mind. Are you learning processes right now? I know we all are. So I hope that shift in mindset really brings you peace and comfort in knowing that we're all struggling. We're all going through it. We also have seasons of such excitement, and we have those too, and we relish those. But do you have a process to relish those? So, with that, I'd like to say thank you for tuning into my podcast. Please like my social media channels. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Connect with me online on my webpage is the best. You can sign up for my email list. Talking about this type of stuff too, with doing the process, it really links to my metaphysical courses that I have. My Mystic Rise class is only $34.34 on my website. You can easily access that. The next one about manifesting, Metaphysics 2, is totally free because there's so much abundance on manifestation. I just wanted to get my 2 cents in there too about how I approach manifestation. And there'll be more Mystic Rise classes to come. So I hope to see you in those classes and to get in touch with you. If you're working on a process, I'd really love to hear you in the comments. Tell me what process you are learning right now. So thank you so much for being such a great listener. Thank you for listening. Expand the life, healing, and happiness of others in your field by sharing this episode. You can get more of my content and other helpful tips by following Raven Rabbit LLC on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Be sure to comment on Spotify and answer the episode's question so I can keep creating content you love and desire. Thank you so much.